Hi everyone, in today's video you guys are going to get to see my bearded dragons Franklin and Nova getting baths and having their nails trimmed and getting their teeth brushed. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned because obviously it's already happening. Something that I don't see people talk about super often is how important hygiene is for reptiles, in particular bearded dragons, who are known to get bacterial and fungal infections on their skin, including yellow fungus, which is really hard to treat. So hygiene is really important. In addition to proper husbandry, one way to prevent illness in your bearded dragons is to make sure that you are keeping them clean. And that means you want to keep their skin clean, you want to keep their teeth clean, and you want to keep their nails trimmed because that can help prevent from their nails getting snagged on something and causing pain or bleeding. Now, Franklin here, he doesn't need to have his nails trimmed. They've never been particularly long. He's always kept them short himself. But even though Nova is very active, her nails are always very long, and I just think that's because she's a diva. So later on, you will see me trim Nova's nails, but you will not see me trim Franklin's. So this is Franklin in the bath right now. I want to say a couple things about the bath water to make sure that you're giving a proper bath. One, it cannot be too warm. It should be lukewarm. And because our body temperature is much higher than a bearded dragon's, the water shouldn't feel overly warm to you. Like, they're not going to use the same type of shower that we would use. I personally like mine scalding, but Franklin needs his to be lukewarm. I personally go like this. If the water feels really warm to my hand, that's too warm. Because again, our body temperature is higher than a reptile's. Because reptiles are cold-blooded and we, mammals, are warm-blooded. If you see little flecks in the water right here, that is from his substrate. It's not mites or anything like that. But if you have a bearded dragon that's not on substrate and there's a lot of flecks in the water, it could possibly be mites, but also it could be poop flecks. Because a lot of bearded dragons will get poop stuck to their scales, which is a huge reason why baths are important. And soon you're going to see me take an old toothbrush, which I use strictly for the bearded dragons, and I'm going to gently go over his scales to get the little poop flecks and little dirt and stuff off of him. I do this with both the bearded dragons about once a week. Another thing you'll notice is that I have the faucet going a tiny bit to create a little bit of surface movement on the top of the water. And that is just because bearded dragons are going to be more likely to drink water that is not stagnant. So sometimes Franklin and Nova will take a little drink out of the sink when they're bathing, and that is because the water is trickling onto the surface. You know, it's just something that they have evolutionarily developed to not drink stagnant water because stagnant water is not good for them. Another thing I forgot to mention is that you're going to want to make sure that you clean your sink out really well. You don't want any human detergents or soaps left in the sink. I don't use any soap in the bath whatsoever. I just use regular water. So if you decide to go the route of using soap, I can't personally recommend any, and I've never needed it, so I just use water. One last thing to make sure after you're done scrubbing their scales is just to make sure that they're properly rinsed and there's no flecks left behind. Now here you can see I'm about to use Chlorohex, which is a solution I got from my vet. Make sure when you use this, you dilute it 50% water, 50% Chlorohex. And again, if you have water that is treated with chlorine, make sure that you use a dechlorinator. Again, I don't have to because mine isn't. So right now I'm about to brush Franklin's teeth. Now I know you've probably never heard of this. I didn't even hear of it until my vet recommended it when I took them to the vet last year. But bearded dragons are susceptible to gum disease, especially as they age, and what happens is bacteria builds up on their gums and their gum line starts to recede, and then oxygen gets into those pockets where the teeth and gums no longer meet, and it erodes the bone. So it's really not great, and once air can get in, it also opens it to bacteria, and it's a hot mess. You really obviously don't want that for your bearded dragon. You can have their teeth cleaned by your exotic vet. Franklin is due for one of those, but for the time being, like regular maintenance, you brush their teeth. So in order to brush their teeth, I just take the end of a Q-tip, dip it in the 50% Chlorohex, 50% water solution, and rub it along their gum line and their teeth by gently pulling down on their lower lip so I can access their teeth. Now here comes Nova, and Nova is an absolute peach in the bathtub, and by that I mean every bit of sarcasm as possible, because she's not really chill in the bath, 90% of the time. The 10% of the time she's chill, but 90% she's not. And what you're about to see is Nova pooping in the bath, which is pretty normal for her and Franklin. Sometimes they poop in the bath, but usually I am downstairs to catch this and move her out of the way so I can just dispose of the poop right away. I was running upstairs to get the nail clippers for her nail trim, which I had forgotten. So she had the opportunity to play in her poop and just get it absolutely everywhere. Look at this chaos. When I came back, I was like, oh my God. First of all, I couldn't wait to see the footage because I didn't get to see this firsthand. But here you see me like, oh God, get out of that stupid sink. So nasty. And then, of course, I put her back in to rinse her off because I already had to scrape poop off of her from when she played in her poop yesterday outside of the bath. So it was a mess. So basically, I washed her off, got all of the poop flecks off from her current poop, and then also the reason that she needed a bath in the first place is because she played in her poop yesterday. So I had to scrape off the poop with this toothbrush. Now, normally Franklin is the one who does the playing and the pooping, and Nova is a bit more regal. But ever since moving into her new enclosure, which I'll include a link on the top of the screen here and in the description down below, ever since being moved into that enclosure, she's been just very, very active. And now, if she poops, she runs through it like there's no tomorrow and spreads it everywhere. And it is absolutely not fun to clean off of her, and also not fun to clean off of the floor of her enclosure. One more thing I do want to mention about brushing their scales with an old toothbrush is that you want to make sure that you're going with the scales and not against the scales. Also here, I'm just rubbing off a little bit of debris that was in the front of her face, but I didn't want to use a toothbrush for that because it's a little delicate areas. But yeah, just make sure you're going with the scales. So like I go down her tail, for example, and not up her tail, if that makes sense. I also managed to get a clip from far away so you can see how difficult she is. Like she constantly tries to jump out of the tub and she's just not having a good... Did I say tub? I mean sink. She's just not having a good time, obviously. Now, the good thing about trimming a bearded dragon's nails, and I don't know if this is the case for all bearded dragons because I've seen some that have like black nails and I don't know if they're see-through still, but for both of my bearded dragons, I can see through their nails. Their nails are translucent, so I can see where the nerve is so that I can make sure I avoid that when I'm clipping their nails. But really, all it takes is, and this is where my camera just died out on me and then I had to get Nova off my shoulder. But anyways, what I do is I look at the nail, and there's like a little pointy bit at the end, and then there's like a little notch. And I just go right up to that notch. And that's still pretty far away from her nerve so that I don't accidentally hit that. She's not too bad about having her nails trimmed. Sometimes if they're not long, I'll just like file them a little bit. But it's been a while since she had a nail trim, so I had to get the clippers out. And I just use regular like human fingernail clippers, and I've never had a problem doing that. I also want to add that like not all of her nails need to be trimmed every time. So usually the nails that are closest inwards to her foot, so like what would be considered like the thumb of her feet, if that makes any sense, those usually are short and they don't need to be trimmed. But the ones that are out farther away are usually longer and need to be trimmed. And that's just due to the nature of the way that she grabs onto things, I'm sure. And now it's time to brush her teeth, which you will see she is very not fond of. But I just use the exact same method as I do with Franklin. I just pull down on her lower lip line or lower mouth. Sometimes it's like kind of like on her beard that ends up where I pull down. But if it looks like I'm restraining her a lot, I promise you I'm not. That's why she has plenty of room to jump out of my hands here in a second. But I just use the exact same method as I do with Franklin. I mix some water with some Chlorohex to a 50-50 amount, and then I put that on a Q-tip, and then I rub that along her gum line and the edge of her teeth. Not like her lower teeth, but where her teeth meet her gum line. That's where it is most important because the bacteria will get trapped up like on the underside of those lips. So you want to make sure that you get up in there. Now, you don't have to press hard. It's not like trying to brush plaque off of human teeth or dog teeth. You just want to make sure it's clean in there. So you just want to do a nice gentle rubbing. And that can be a little bit of a challenge when you have someone who is as determined as Nova to get out of your hands. But I'm sure that with a little bit of practice, you can get the hang of it. I also use multiple Q-tips, so I'll use one Q-tip head on each side, and then I'll throw away that Q-tip, and then I use a Q-tip head on each side again and throw away that one. Sometimes I use 2, sometimes I use 3. Do not, I repeat, do not let your bearded dragon bite the Q-tip. They have sharp teeth. They could easily take the cotton or like little material right off the top. They could bite through it and swallow the end of it. Like, you definitely want to avoid that as much as possible. So don't let them bite on it. Just stay on the outside of their teeth as much as possible. If they open their mouth, pull back. Don't let them chew on it. And despite all of her protesting, we are done. Well done, Miss Nova. Now we're going to head over and take a look at their enclosure. So this is Nova's enclosure. It is a 4x2x2 Zen Habitats enclosure, which I did link earlier and also in the description. And then Franklin is also in a Zen Habitats 4x2x2 enclosure. Both of these are the wood enclosures, not the PVC enclosures, but both will work for bearded dragons. I have had these enclosures set up for a little over a month now. Actually, it might be a month and a half. Time flies. This year is nutty. But I'm actually really thrilled with these enclosures. I love how they turned out. And if you are interested in getting a Zen Habitats enclosure of your own, I do have an affiliate link down below, which means that if you click on that link and purchase through that link, I do make a small commission. And I am really appreciative of that because it always goes back to my animals. So I thank you in advance if that's what you decide to do. But thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!